Why did Darth Plagueis believe it was impossible for Palpatine, his apprentice, to betray him despite the rule of two? Darth Plagueis the Wise, a name whispered with reverence, not for victories on the battlefield, but for his mastery of secrets long thought to be impossible. He sought to control the very fabric of existence itself, to bend the Force on a cellular level, to master life and death, to become eternal. He was so powerful, so influential that even his apprentice, the man who would become Emperor of the Galaxy, doubted whether he could ever truly destroy him. But quietly in a private penthouse on Coruscant, his apprentice Darth Sidious had just been elected the Supreme Chancellor. The galaxy itself seemed to bend to Plagueis' design, but as he celebrated what he believed was the culmination of 1,000 years of Sith ambition, betrayal struck him. The paradox is not how Plagueis died, it is why he never saw it coming. Why did a master who crowned himself the fulfillment of Bane's rule of two fail to recognize the most ancient truth of the Sith, that every apprentice exists to kill their master? The answer lies in Plagueis' philosophy, his arrogance, and the singular apprentice he never intended to take. Greetings again, acolytes and lore junkies, and welcome back to the archives. Today we will be discussing exactly why Darth Plagueis thought that he would never be betrayed by Palpatine, how this was one of his greatest mistakes, but how he rationalized it. Let us begin. Plagueis was the heir to Darth Tenebris, a Sith Lord of mathematics and probability. From Tenebris he learned precision and patience, but where his master saw only numbers, Darth Plagueis saw destiny. He turned his obsession to the midichlorians, the symbiotic life forms that connected all beings to the Force. If he could command them, he could command life itself. Through experimentation, he learned to stretch the limits of biology. He could preserve life, manipulate conception, perhaps even create it. To Plagueis, this was the fulfillment of the dark side, not simply to kill, but to master the Force at its root. Where the Jedi sought harmony, he sought dominion. Where others sought to bend armies, Plagueis sought to bend existence. And he believed himself the culmination of Bane's 1,000-year vision. For generations, the Sith had hidden in the shadows, sharpening their strength and secrecy. Darth Bane's rule of two was a master and an apprentice. This had been meant to refine the Sith, distilling their power until one day the galaxy would fall. Plagueis believed that that day had come. With him, the cycle would end. He would not be another link in the chain. He would be the final answer. His grand plan was elegant: Sith conquest through politics, finance, and manipulation. No wars to announce their return, no open crusade. Instead, the Republic would decay from within, until it became the very empire the Sith desired. All Plagueis required was a mask, a public face who could operate openly, while he remained the hidden hand. Yet here lay the irony. Though he envisioned himself the true master of destiny, Plagueis did not want an apprentice at all. The rule of two was, to him, an outdated mechanism. He had no interest in training a rival destiny to strike him down. He believed he could remake the galaxy alone. But then the dark side placed before him a young man from Naboo. From the moment Plagueis encountered Palpatine, he knew that this was no ordinary being. Even as a youth, Palpatine radiated cruelty and ambition, a political instinct sharper than any blade. But most importantly, he possessed a gift unmatched in Sith history: the ability to conceal himself in the Force so perfectly that even the Jedi and Plagueis could not sense him. He was invisible, and this was exactly what Plagueis desired and needed: an answer to his prayers. To Plagueis, this was no accident, it was destiny. The grand plan demanded secrecy, and here was a man born invisible to his enemies. He could move among them without suspicion, a serpent in plain sight. Palpatine was too perfect a vessel to ignore, too extraordinary to be chance. And so, despite never wanting an apprentice, Plagueis took him. But Palpatine was no ordinary student. Plagueis opened every single door using Palpatine, the wealth of Naboo, the elites of Coruscant, and eventually the Galactic Senate itself. Under his master's hand, Palpatine ascended higher than any Sith apprentice had before him. He was not disposable. Palpatine was indispensable, a partner. And this was Plagueis' greatest mistake. For in elevating his apprentice so completely, he made himself dependent. Palpatine was the linchpin of the grand plan, the irreplaceable face of Sith destiny. Plagueis believed this made him loyal, that by giving his apprentice everything, that he had secured him forever in mind, body, and soul. But Palpatine did not see loyalty. Palpatine saw chains. Though he rose to heights beyond imagination, he still felt the weight of Plagueis' hand. Still the errand boy, still the executor of his master's vision. Plagueis saw Palpatine as the dark side's greatest gift. Palpatine saw in Plagueis a ceiling and a master, and eventually an obstacle. And so the night of triumph arose. In the glittering heights of Coruscant, Palpatine's penthouse overlooked the endless city as celebration echoed its halls. The apprentice was now the supreme chancellor. The Republic itself had bent to the Sith design. For Plagueis, this was vindication. He had crowned himself the heir of Bane, the end of the cycle, the Sith who had carried the rule of two to perfection. When Tenebris had calculated probabilities, he had delivered certainty. Where others had waited, he had acted. And now as he drank deeply of fine wine and dreamed aloud of the future, he envisioned not only Sidious as chancellor, but himself stepping into the light as co-chancellor. Together, master and apprentice would rule openly, not as rivals, but as eternal partners. But for Palpatine, this was a breaking point. He had indeed risen higher than any apprentice in history. Yet Plagueis still spoke as though the future belonged only to him. Even now he believed himself indispensable. Even now he believed Palpatine existed to serve. And the dark side whispered. Palpatine had not entered that night planning murder, but the Force does not honor loyalty. The Force honors ambition. It whispered that the cycle demanded continuation, that the era of Darth Plagueis was at an end. As Plagueis drifted into deep sleep, dulled by wine and sustained by the hiss of his breathing mask, Palpatine struck. He seized the apparatus with the Force, crushing it, unleashing storm after storm of lightning surging into his master's body. Plagueis awoke in confusion, choking, convulsing, clawing at the air. But as his eyes locked with his apprentices, there was no fear in them. There was only absolute certainty. The look of a man who believed that he was eternal. The gaze of a master who thought death could never touch him. But it was a lie. His confidence availed him nothing. His knowledge failed him. In his final moments, Plagueis' arrogance was laid bare. He died not as a conqueror of death, but as another victim of a cycle that he thought he had ended. And as Palpatine watched his master's body fall still, he understood what Plagueis had not. The dark side rewards nothing but betrayal, nothing but power. It scoffs in the face of all equals. To the dark side, this is impossible. To Bane, Plagueis had become a heretic, a failure, a cancer to be cut out, removed. But why? Why did he never see it coming? Plagueis' downfall was not born of weakness. It was not ignorance of the rule of two or even blindness to history. It was something more tragic. Plagueis believed that he had transcended it all. For 1,000 years, the rule of two had been the engine of Sith survival. One master, one apprentice. The apprentice grew in secret, then destroyed the master, becoming stronger still. The cycle refined the Sith across centuries, burning away the weak and forging ever greater strength. Darth Bane designed it to ensure that betrayal was not failure, but was one's destiny. Plagueis knew this history well, but he saw himself as the end, the one who had perfected the plan, the Sith Lord who could take the cycle no further because there was no higher point to reach. He had crowned himself the fulfillment of Bane's legacy. He believed the dark side had chosen him to be eternal, and from this belief came the fatal assumptions that blinded him to betrayal. Plagueis was certain that he had conquered death beyond the plan though. Through his experiments with the midichlorians, he had prolonged life, manipulated conception, and bent biology to his will. Even in his final moments, as Palpatine's lightning seared deep into his body, he looked at his apprentice not with fear, but with a chilling confidence. A confidence that would haunt even Palpatine for the rest of his life. A look that said, "You cannot kill me. I am eternal." The arrogance was his undoing, as it is for all Sith. He believed even death was beneath him. He believed the cycle could not claim him, and Darth Plagueis was wrong. Plagueis believed his apprentice was dependent on him. Palpatine, for all of his cunning, had never mastered the manipulation of the midichlorians. He could deceive, he could destroy, he could rule, but he could not command life itself as Plagueis could. Plagueis believed that this gave him power over his apprentice, and so in his arrogance, he assumed Sidious would never strike him down. Not yet, not before learning what he still lacked. To Plagueis, his knowledge was a chain around his apprentice's neck. He believed it guaranteed loyalty. Instead, it guaranteed contempt. Palpatine did not care to master the midichlorians, he cared to master power. And for that, Plagueis was in the way. Plagueis did not see Sidious as a rival in the making. He saw him as a partner in eternity. In his mind, the rule of two had evolved into something new. Not a master and an apprentice, but a master and a co-ruler. He had raised Palpatine to be Chancellor, and in doing this, Plagueis abandoned the truth that defined every Sith before him. Apprentices are not meant to share power, they are meant to take it. Plagueis believed that Sidious still needed him. The Sith had not yet completed their conquest. The Jedi still lived. The Republic still stood. Surely, he thought, his apprentice would not strike him down with so much remaining unfinished. But what Plagueis did was not see how thoroughly he had made himself obsolete. In elevating Sidious to Chancellor, he had handed him the Republic. The plan no longer required two, and in Sidious's eyes, there was no room left for partnership. The cruelest irony of it all, Plagueis had proclaimed himself the culmination of Bane's legacy, the Sith who would end the cycle of betrayal. Yet in his death, he fulfilled it more perfectly than any Sith before him. Tenebrous thought probability would save him. He died betrayed. Bane thought rules could save him. He died betrayed. Plagueis thought immortality could save him. He died betrayed. And in the end, Sidious himself would fall the same way, undone by an apprentice he underestimated. The dark side does not allow permanence. It rewards betrayal. It thrives on it. It demands it. Plagueis mistook his apprentice for a gift of destiny. In truth, the dark side had not given him a partner, but his own executioner. And so, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? Had you ever wondered why Darth Plagueis never suspected he would be betrayed by his apprentice Sidious despite the rule of two? As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and as always, may the Force be with you.